what's your stance on gun control?
Well, the government shouldn't control like what people can own.
Every law is an infringement, right?
Every law that's not God's law is an infringement on people's rights and like justice.
So like this Beto guy who wants to take all AR-15s, you're saying no to that guy?
Yeah, I mean that's
I
evil.
would agree with you there. See, we can agree on something now. There we
go.
Well,
what do you put your faith in?
I put my faith in humans and science itself.
Yeah, well, how do you know that humans exist?
How do we know that humans exist?
Yeah.
I think, therefore I am.
Well, how do you know that I exist? When you say I, what is I referring to? Is that like...
Is it me or you?
Well, when you say I exist, what is I? Is it just perceptions of consciousness?
I is yourself, your being, your ideas, your philosophies. I is you.
But how do you know that? Is I like an entity that perceives things, or like what is it? How can you say I think, therefore I am, if you don't even know what thinking is? Like, how do you know what thinking is?
I know what thinking is because I'm thinking right now.
What is thinking?
So thinking is, just acting upon yourself. Would you say like a lobster thinks?
Well, there's all these perceptions in your consciousness, right? You're perceiving all these different things, or you think you are. There's like colors, shapes, concepts in this consciousness, right? But how do you know that all of those things belong to one entity? That one entity is perceiving things, and that like there's like a being who has perceptions. Like maybe reality is just a bunch of random colors and shapes and concepts moving around, Like how do you know? You can't say I exist. You need to define what I is.
Well, let's kind of start from the end. Where's the goalpost in this current conversation? Defining what I is.
Well, we need to put our faith, everybody puts their faith in something. We all operate on faith. So what are you putting your faith in is the question.
I don't use faith in any amount.
Well, you're putting faith in the belief that I exist for you to communicate with me, right?
No, I'm not.
So you don't believe that I'm another entity who can understand you?
I'm using data that I've pulled from this conversation right here. I mean, I haven't touched you. I don't know you're not a hologram. But I'm using data pulled from our conversation here to, verifiably, beyond reasonable doubt, that you're not an alien, you're not a lizard guy, you're not a hologram sitting here. You're a real human with real ideas and real thoughts.
Well, how can you be justified in believing that, though? How do you know I'm not part of your consciousness and you're not talking to yourself?
Because, again, I'm pulling from this data. I've never had schizophrenic tendencies.
You're putting faith in the belief that you are receiving the correct perception of reality. Yes, you are believing that you are perceiving reality correctly, right? You're putting your faith in what your consciousness is giving you. You're putting your faith in the belief that is true.
That's not faith, though.
It is faith.
Do you have faith that the moon orbits the Earth?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Do you have faith in that?
Like, I believe, like faith is mentally assenting to the truth of something.
So you don't know via observations of yourself and all the people around you that this big rock in the sky orbits the Earth, roughly every 30 days. You don't know that because that's scientific proof. You just believe in it out of faith.
You put your faith in the scientific experiments, right? You believe, you mentally assent to the truths of those it is faith.
The scientific process.
So knowledge is defined as justified true belief. And so knowledge itself requires belief, and and you need faith to believe something. Like faith, I define faith as mentally assenting to the truth of something. So you are mentally assenting to the truth of the belief that the moon orbits and that you exist to communicate with another entity like me, right?
So that's your definition of faith. Should we look up the Webster Merriam Dictionary?
You can look it up if you want. And
because for my definition, and what I would say I hate to clump you as a group, what religious people would say is that faith is believing without verifiable proof. Would you say that?
That's incorrect.
Would you say that a lot of theists think that way, though?
They might think that way, but that would be an incorrect, and the thing is you need faith to have proof, right? In order to prove something, you're putting your faith in the experiments, right? You're putting your faith in that you have correct perceptions of reality.
No.
If you don't put faith in that in the first place, you can't do science, right?
No, it's not faith because it's based in facts.
Well, how do you know that facts are facts? How do you know that you're perceiving reality correctly?
Because they're verifiable. You can see them. You can pull data.
No, you're assuming they're verifiable. You're just assuming that. You don't know for sure. I mean, if in your own worldview in which God has not revealed to you the true nature of reality, you're putting faith in the belief that your perceptions of reality are correct, but you have no way of proving that. prove that your perceptions of reality are correct.
Okay, so
how do you do it?
Here's a good one. So gravity is what? In a numeric factor, it's 9.8 meters per second squared. Okay, so you can drop a tennis ball using the mass of the tennis ball, the friction of the air around it, and how quickly it hits the ground. You can prove beyond faith, you can prove undoubtedly that the gravitational pull of Earth, and it's different in some spots, is approximately 9.8 meters per second squared.
But how do you know that the tennis ball or whatever ball is actually falling to the Earth? It could be an illusion,
now
right?
You're getting into like a philosophical...
Right, it's philosophy.
This is a circular argument.
Well, all argumentation is circular.
It's not.
Everybody circles back to an ultimate authority that they're putting their faith in.
The circular argument is a fallacy.
Well, no. Not all circular argumentation is. There's vicious circular reasoning and there's virtuous circular reasoning. But all reasoning is circular because you're always circling back to your ultimate authority. Your ultimate authority is the perceptions of your consciousness, right? You're perceiving that ball falling to the earth, right? But you're using circular reasoning by using your consciousness to validate your consciousness. You're saying, I know that my consciousness is true because I use my consciousness to validate that it's seeing things correctly. You know, like I'm seeing this happen and therefore it's happening.
Why do you have any reason to think it otherwise?
Well,
where does that get you?
I'm saying in your worldview, in which if you're rejecting theism, if you're rejecting the Christian worldview, you're not justified in believing things to be true if you're putting faith in revelation from limited consciousness that doesn't know everything, because you could always be wrong about the things you think you know. But what I'm putting my faith in is revelation from unlimited consciousness, God who knows everything, who knows all the facts, who gives us the facts. And so I have true knowledge, I have justified true belief, I'm justified in believing what he says to be true.
That's your right. That's your right.
But you're not justified in putting your faith in limited consciousness that doesn't know everything, because you could always be wrong, right?
It is not a one-way street. That's not how it works. I'm justified in believing this is part of, America, our Constitution as it is. I'm allowed to believe what I like.
I'm not saying when I'm saying justified, I'm saying it doesn't make sense for you to say I know things when you're putting faith in the revelation of your own consciousness that doesn't know everything, because you could always be wrong.
So yeah,
right?
Humans in general don't know anything. Would you agree on that?
They know some things because God has revealed himself to them, and they put their faith in what he reveals.
So God revealed universal gravitation.
Yeah.
Or Albert Einstein.
He gave us minds to perceive reality correctly. Well, but if you don't put your faith in the belief that God created your mind to perceive reality correctly, and that he told you he created you to do that, you can't know that you exist. You can't be justified in saying this is true and that's not true just based off of your own perceptions.
No, for 100%, but you can believe with 99.999 to the nth factor that is accurate. That what you're seeing is accurate. Would you say that? Because you have no reason to believe otherwise.
Well, if you're not putting your faith in revelation from the all-knowing being, how could you be justified in saying you know it? Because how do you know you're not in some kind of illusory experience? I mean, how do you know that your perceptions are correct?
So have you ever, okay, it's gonna sound like I'm changing the subject here, but I'm not.
Okay.
It's not a tangent, it's gonna come full circle. Have you ever spoken to God?
Yeah.
Has he spoken to you?
Well, he's spoken to me through his word, the Bible, and I mean, I feel like the Holy Spirit leads me and like nudges me, like communicates to me. I haven't heard like audible words
now, how do you
from
know
God.
This is not your perception?
How do I know this isn't
your perception? Why do you take this as fact? It's not just you tripping.
Well, because if God didn't exist and if he didn't reveal himself in the true nature of reality, I wouldn't be able to know anything. So that's the foundation for knowledge in the first place. That's what knowledge is. Knowledge is what is revealed to me from an all-knowing being, and it is justified true belief. What was that?
Knowledge is what you find on your report.
It's what I find while I'm putting my faith in a worldview in which there is revelation from an all-knowing being. But if there is no all-knowing being to tell me what the true nature of reality is, I don't know. How could I know? How could I be justified in saying this is true?
Yeah, hey, good talk.
Yeah,
we
man.
agreed on guns, don't agree on the abortion thing, or the theism thing, but I appreciate that you're willing to have conversation.
Yeah, you're not justified in, like, you're not putting your faith in the right worldview. We're all operating on faith. And so if you don't put your faith in the Christian worldview and in Jesus Christ, you're going to end up in hell. So it's incredibly important, you know.
Okay, now this is where theists like lose me, because you can't just threaten people like that. It's kind of dark, isn't it?
I'm warning you. I'm not threatening you.
Yeah, it's a threat.
I'm telling you what God says in the Bible. You know, it's not a threat to tell you what God tells us in His Word.
So see, here I'm going to give you something just as an atheist point of view. When having these philosophical debates or political debates regarding abortion, try to keep it as theistic as possible. Maybe like, do you ever watch Ben Shapiro?
No.
No? So
I mean, I've seen him a little bit.
He's a
not
Jewish
much.
man. I don't love him, but what I do like about him is, you know, he usually keeps his religious beliefs out of the conversation and tries to speak from a logical point of view. I'm not saying you're not doing that. I'm just saying that's one of the things that I appreciate out of him, you know, from his talking points.
Well, everybody has a religion. Everybody has a belief system that they use to make sense of reality. That's what religion is. Well, you have a religion. It's a religion of self-worship.
No.
You put your faith in yourself. You make yourself the highest authority, and you worship yourself.
Literally means not of theism. I don't have a religion.
Well, you do have your own. You have yourself as your own God. If you're putting your faith in your own perceptions and trusting in yourself to give yourself knowledge, if you make yourself the highest authority, if you're your highest authority and there's no other being that you're putting your faith in, then you're your own God, right?
That's not a God then, am I?
Well, I would say that it is a God. It is a religion. I'd say whatever your highest authority is your God.
All right, well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna bounce, man. Good talk, okay?
Yep.
I appreciate you having open discussions, okay?
Yep.
Thank you, man.